Hi there, I'm going to show you how to begin your abstract cubist sculpture. And what you're going to need is a block of wood with 2 holes drilled in it. You're going to need some 8-gauge wire. This is about 2.5 feet long. And 8-gauge is the size of the wire. It's called 8-gauge. You're going to need some 80 grit sandpaper. 80 grit is how coarse the sand is. And 80 grit sandpaper is very coarse. It will take off more material than a fine sandpaper. And the last thing you're going to need, the next thing you're going to need is a knee-high stocking. And the last thing you're going to need is some white glue. So let's begin. You're going to take your block of wood and you're going to put some glue in the holes here. Try to squirt it down in there. It's okay if you have a little extra on the top because nobody will see that. And you're going to insert both ends of your wire as far down as you can. Push it down. It should go down about 1 inch. Then, maybe I'll wipe this off a little bit because I don't want to get it on me. You can wear an apron if you don't want to get glue on yourself. Actually, I would recommend that. And the next thing you want to do is start bending your wire around. You kind of have to use some strength. And it's kind of difficult, actually it's impossible to really know what this is going to look like until you actually get the pantyhose, the knee-high stocking over it. Okay, so don't try to second guess. If you were thinking, oh, I wish I could make a rabbit, it's pretty much impossible. You have to just let it be what it's going to be. And try to get the angles coming out a bit. You can continue to adjust it after you get the pantyhose over the top of it. So don't bend it too much. This looks pretty good. Let's see what happens when I slide the pantyhose over the top. Now you want to gather it up in your hand like this. Okay? And then you want to try to put the toe, if you have a seam, over some. Try to align it with the wire if you can. If not, if that's too much trouble, don't worry about it. Okay, so I'm pulling it down and I want to keep it really tight. So I'm going to pull it and pull it and pull it and pull it. And then I'm going to get it over. Oops. Stop for a second. I need to lightly sand the edges of my wood. Probably should have done this before I started, but the reason we want to lightly sand the edges is because if we don't, it might make the stocking run, and in which case it's going to be hard to hide that, and it will just look like a empty gap. So I'm going to sand the rough edges off going to feel it to see, make sure it's smooth, which it is. Okay, now I'm going to pull it over the edges. This one is very, very tight. You want to be careful pulling it over. And you want to feel it to make sure it's not loose and baggy. I think I'd like to bend this up a little bit. I'd like to see this bent up a little bit more, so I'm just going to do that. And still like to get it a little bit more if I can. Now I'm seeing it's a little wrinkly and baggy in here, so I'm going to keep trying to pull it down. Maybe turn it over and pull a little bit. I got to reach through to the other side and pull it over. Alright, it's still a little baggy here, but at least it lines up with the edge. Like I said, that can be a little tricky, but if you can do it, great. I feel like I could still get a little more around the bottom. If you can, you want to get it to be like tight as a drum. And I think that's as close as I'm going to get. And look, I already have a run, so I kind of overdid it. Oh well, so that's what you don't want to do. Also, you want to get a Sharpie and write your name on the bottom, on the wood, on the wooden part, because the rest is going to get painted and you won't see it. So write your name on the wooden part, and that is the first step in making our abstract cubist sculpture. So the second step to our sculpture is we're going to paint it with gesso. Okay, gesso is a base coat that you use on before you begin painting things. Sometimes it's kind of like a primer, like you might put on a wall that you're going to paint in your house. It's a dense white coating that will make a nice solid base for the rest of your painting. So we want to paint our entire sculpture with this gesso, and don't paint over your name. I'm not going to demonstrate, but it's easy enough. You just dip the brush in, give it a nice thick coat all over, and then put it, make sure you work on newspaper. Okay, you know where the newspaper is. Make sure you work on newspaper. When you're finished, you've got the whole thing coated, leave it on the newspaper, or perhaps wax paper, which I can give you to dry. And the important thing is you want to wash this brush really, really thoroughly. Okay, you want to wash it. You want to wash it a lot more thoroughly than you think you need to. like a lot more thoroughly than you think you need to. So this is the way you do it. You pour the water onto the brush and you swish it back and forth in your hand. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get all the paint out of this area in here. And if you're bending your brush and there's still white paint coming out of there, you know you haven't gotten it. So you have to be extremely vigilant and fastidious about getting that paint out of there. Otherwise, your brush will be ruined, and the next time you go back to use it, it will be hard as a rock. So I know you don't want to use any hard as a rock brushes. And I know that my other students in my other classes don't want to use a brush that's hard as a rock. So keep doing this longer than you think you need to. And when you're finished, you put whatever jar you're going to put it in. Let's say this is the jar. I haven't decided which jar we're going to put them in yet, but say this is it. You put it bristle side up, okay? And for most brushes, you want to point them up into a nice little, so that they're nice and dense at the end, close together at the end, rather than bushy, like a used toothbrush. So anyway, that's the way you clean the brush. Be very, very careful about cleaning your brushes, like I said. And we're going to just wait for this to dry, and when it's dry, we'll paint a second coat on it. So if it has a little bit of area where you can see through it still, don't worry about that. Okay? Alrighty. Bye-bye.